Yeah, hi everyone. Welcome to the summary of my 90-minute learning sequence. The core objective of this lesson is to take a seemingly dry, complex corporate skill, which is interpreting operational dashboards, decode it into something a little more engaging, intuitive. Um, my intended learning outcome is that students will be able to interpret the dashboard and some of the seemingly complex charts that they might encounter. To achieve this without overwhelming the students, I'm using Sweller's cognitive load theory, democratic pedagogy, and connectivism, and I'm introducing some interesting stories from Stephen Strogatz on synchronization, as well as James Serwecki, Wisdom of Crowds, that just indicate that data can be a little bit more fun than just the dry topic it's made out to be. So as we progress through this, I'm introducing an operational dashboard, which can be daunting when you first see it if you don't know what you're looking at. And that's the idea here, is to create a bit of a shock factor. When you start to deconstruct it, you look at the dashboard and really it's just conveying visual information about a process that an operational team will perform. So to try and ensure that they're not overwhelmed, we do a diagnostic assessment to start with. So we ask them to brainstorm their morning routines and how they actually get to school. And that allows us to have a bit of a look at, do they understand the concept of process? Then we'll take that process, I'll get them to construct a histogram from that data. And it can just be fun. It's just getting together some rubbishy data, just enough to make some data points down here. I'll tell them the story, so I'll introduce the stuff there to say, just talk about how fireflies and cicadas always start to flash in synchronization, just to try and, because that's just a natural resonance as they find. And this normal distribution that you see is just something that occurs in nature. Just showing them there about, I'll run some sequences here about different chart types and why different chart types don't work. Again, just so that they understand why we do what we do. Then we'll build out a histogram, and I'll do that as a class exercise, so that'll be a bit of a collaborative learning exercise that references off to Vygotsky and social constructivism. And as we move into clustering the data, I'll get them to work in pairs, and that'll give me the basis for a formative assessment so that we can see how they're progressing. And we'll take that data and then we'll try to plot a histogram. And that's the starting point. So if we can get them to plot that, and then once they've plotted the histogram, then we'll get them to plot the 5 critical data points that we need to move forward. So, we create upper and lower, we create the median, we create the 25th, and we create the 75th percentiles. And it doesn't look much at the moment, but what happens is we start to join them together, and that's the box. So that's a summary of a histogram. That's conveying basically the critical data points. And then I end up with, so we take this and now we start to create some visual scaffolding. So because it can be a little overwhelming, I create this visual scaffold, and this will allow them to start to understand how we can deconstruct the complexity. So we take that box that we did, we rotate that around, and that's the box that we would start to play with. All the same data, just instead of being horizontal, it's now vertical. And we customize that a little bit according to some of the special learners that we might have. So now what we can do is we can go along and look at all of our various histograms. So we might have a time series where we've got January, February running up 12 months. We rotate all of those. We extract that summary data. We might get the rest of the year, and now we've got 12 months worth, and we bang them together, and there we go. We've got a box plot, which now that you understand how it's derived, it's not so bad. And we can take that time series box plot, and then we can look at, is the data, what's the variation look like over time? Is it getting tighter? Is it getting worse? We can also look at the trend, so we can see the median. Is that improving month to month, or is that getting worse? And then we can look at both attributes together, because, yeah, so we can see here our variation is getting less over time and our actual trend is improving. So it's quite a good chart, and once you understand it, it's not so bad. And then what we're going to do is the learning sequence will culminate in a summative assessment where we'll present them with, this is a box plot, and my expectation would be that they could answer a couple of basic questions on this. Again, I'll probably put some visual scaffolding on this, so like a vocabulary organiser for some EALs, and just to make sure that we don't kill them with, like IQR and some other acronyms that we use in business. And then as a final assessment there, I've introduced like a different type of chart. It's still a box plot, but instead of a time series now, it's allowing us to compare different parties. And yeah, that summarises, it's covered off the teaching strategies, the assessments utilised, and the diverse learner support.